Let's start with that last headline, if you may, Jacqui. The Bradford's Telegraph. There were a lot of regions that were very frustrated and very angry about the amount of money that they had to put into bid in this process and then the fact that they have come out with nothing.
Well, including the Conservative Mayor of the West Midlands, Andy Street, who was really pretty strong in his criticism of what he called the begging bowl culture of the government. And lots of the West Midlands that most needed money got nothing. I mean, I have to declare an interest because I live about 100 metres away from a very lovely theatre in Malvern, the richest part of Worcestershire, that got £20 million.
Was that a surprise for you, Jacqui, that an area... Because Malvern is one of those very, very sort of flourishing areas that isn't deprived in many ways?
Exactly. It's a bit like Tunbridge Wells, where, of course, the Prime Minister was last year bragging during the course of his leadership campaign about how he was going to get money back from the north of the country and give it to places like Tunbridge Wells. Well, yesterday's announcement seems to have succeeded in doing that.
Oh, dear, Ed. Well, I mean, we spoke to Michael Gove yesterday. You may not have seen the show. I don't know. You may have other things going on in your life. And, of course, he's the Levelling Up Secretary. And he was very clear that they would then go on to help those that didn't succeed this time round and that they were talking to them if they just missed out and there would be money coming down the line. But the idea that councils are having to sort of scramble together the best bid in a glossy sort of Saatchi advertising beauty pageant kind of way and then miss out on it and then they're sort of £600,000 worse off because that's what they've used to do the bid.
That's right. Well, first of all, let me make it clear there's nothing more important in my life than Good Morning Britain.
Well, thank you for that. It's very important to establish that early on.
Secondly, it's all Labour's fault. Last time I got in trouble with Jacqui, inadvertently apparently saying something was Labour's fault when I didn't mean it. It is difficult. I mean, I've been there before as a minister. We've always had these kind of pots of money where individual regions have to bid for it. It is a painful process. And what Andy Street said, he was obviously angry not to get the money. This is the Mayor of the West Midlands, used to run John Lewis, so a very experienced business person as well, and a rare thing, a Tory mayor in the West Midlands, you wouldn't expect him to win, so very popular. And he was basically making this point, exactly the point you've made, which is this kind of merry-go-round where you have to bid and you spend all this time and energy bidding. He's just saying, give the regions the money and allow the regions to spend the money wisely in their locality where they know what's going on. They can decide whether a theatre in Malvern is genuinely deserving of 20 million quid or some other project down the road might be better off. So, and his complaint is it all comes into central government with civil servants based in Whitehall kind of making these desktop decisions and not understanding what's local. But, I mean...
That seems like a really reasonable way of doing it, though, from the outside.
And it was sort of what Michael Gove said. When Michael Gove originally did the Levelling Up White Paper, one of his big things was we need to devolve more power and responsibility to local levels. So I'm surprised he's allowed himself to get into...
And also, you know, the Tories...
Isn't that human nature, though? You know, when you go and apply for a job, it's supposed to be a level playing field. You're told the basics of what you need. You're told what you should do to go there on a form online. But then anybody who really wants the job is going to make sure they look amazing, that their CV's amazing, that they've got the best possible thing in the interview
not sure that
to say that's amazing. So you can't sort of blame the councils for wanting to spend the money to do something incredible.
You can't knock the winners if you're going to kind of commiserate with the losers.
Or even knock the people wanting to try.
Exactly. So you know, I don't know anything about the Malvern Theatre, but
well, Rosendale, where Nithya was yesterday, they spent £600,000 on their bid. I mean, that's £600,000, which our viewers will argue could have been put towards social care, could have been put towards. There are
lots of schemes where you have to bid. The City of Culture, which I'm interested in, Leeds is the City of Culture, and Bradford's going to be the City of Culture later on. People bid, and actually there are some good side effects because you marshal all your arguments and facts and you come up with new ideas which you can still follow through on, even if you don't necessarily get the money from government. But, you know, Labour had these regional development agencies. The Tories abolished them because they hated one in particular, which was the South East, and they're all based in the South East. We've come back with mayors, which are a good thing, you know, city mayors and so on, who are great advocates for their towns. But I think that Jacqui is right, that devolution and pushing power away from Whitehall into local areas with local people making those decisions is the way forward.
I mean, I suppose one of the reasons why I said, oh, dear, was because it's not being great for... If we look at that Bradford front page of that newspaper... Bradford you know, he happened to be going to Bradford just when they didn't get the money that they wanted. He has used a jet, taxpayers' expense, 3 times. He also was videoed with his seatbelt not on.
Now that
I mean,
really
there's
was
a
shocking,
whole... Well, no, you're saying that mischievously, Ed.
I
and we
do,
know
I'm
you
afraid.
have
Always
mischief
mischievous,
about
Ed.
you. But there is a sense of not caring that people are reading in all of this.
Well, look, I would say...
Are you going to defend the Prime Minister?
No,
You defend Rishi, I'll come back in with you.
All right, OK. What I was actually going
wrong.
to say was, you know, on the whole, I don't think government spinners will be all that happy about the fact that they chucked a load of money into an announcement
very
yesterday
good point.
and all of the headlines are
Yes.
bad. So there's a load of people, I think, will be thinking about why that was the case. Now, one was because the policy was bad for the reasons that we've talked about. Secondly, because it seems to have been handled in terms of the announcement in a very bad way. And then it culminates in Rishi Sunak's assistant, presumably, who was sitting next to him, taking a video, because we know Rishi loves the little videos.
He does, yeah.
And doesn't bother to say to him, do you know what, it'd probably be a good thing if you didn't take your seatbelt off because you're breaking the law. And what's more, I'm filming it.
Which makes you think they're not aware of what other
Exactly.
people are aware of, which is that it feels like it's a continual problem for him. Whether he is aware or not, there's a dislocation, isn't there?
Well, I don't know about that. I think that on one level, having Rishi Sunak as Prime Minister has stabilised the economy. And the other headlines we're seeing this morning are about potentially the UK turning the corner on inflation, the economy stabilising, energy prices coming down. You had the Express there calling for tax cuts. Rishi Sunak promised a tax cut, and if the energy subsidies that he's kind of set aside don't need to be used, it may well be that in the kind of budget before the election we get a tax cut. So there is a lot that Rishi Sunak can be proud of, as well as being, frankly, and I say this positively, a boring, under-the-radar Prime Minister who's not constantly in the headlines because of parties or whatever. So those are the good things. I agree with Jacqui that if you're going to go to Spin School 101 and put this forward as an example, it's not great, particularly when you've got Tory MPs who won red wall seats, Bolsover being an example, famously Dennis Skinner, Labour MP's seat, won by a Tory. The Tory MP now in the newspapers complaining that his town got no money. Now, that is not good coming up to an election when you want to hold those seats if you're going to fend off a Labour government.
Why isn't he taking the train? Is it because he's worried that there will be a strike implication or there'll be a missed service? Because one of the nice things about this
There'll be no
show-
tea, Jacqui. I saw your tweet. No tea on the train coming down.
You're kidding me.
And because one of the nice stories this morning, I think the first time in a long time, Ben and I have opened a show where the lead story is strikes to say the government says there's hope. You know, there does seem to be this final and last offer on the table of 9% that may actually
break the
get
deadline.
through.
Yeah.
It would be great if that was the case, wasn't it? And earlier on this week, there seemed to be some positive commentary coming from Mick Lynch about the discussions that had been had with the government. But, I mean, you ask an important point, and this is another spin problem about yesterday's announcement. One of the things that northern areas are always arguing for is transport infrastructure. And yet what we've seen this week is enormous numbers of trains being cancelled, and the Prime Minister can't even get a train up to the northwest. That's not a good look either for the real things that are going to make a difference.
The optics of him taking a train to do this would have been a lot more positive. But the reality, though, Ed, he's the Prime Minister. He's got a lot of things to do. If it's more convenient and he gets more done, it's more efficient, albeit maybe worse for the environment to fly in a jet. Is that such a bad thing?
Yeah, well, I find all this kind of talk about whether he should have taken the train or the plane very frustrating. I don't think other countries would fuss in the same way we do, or indeed whether he was not wearing a seatbelt in a police car. Well, apparently there's an exemption. Jacqui may remember from her time as Home Secretary, a police car on operation.
No, I don't remember that at all, and I always have my seatbelt on.
That's the defence he'll be using. But I would say, you know, he is, whether you like it or not, the Prime Minister's very busy. I'd much rather he got to Morecambe quickly, was able to work on the plane, could go to the other destinations as efficiently as possible.
And
also, the point was he was moving around 3 or 4 different areas, so it wasn't just necessary that he had to take a train to all of those. So I think as an efficient use of, effectively, the Chief Executive of the UK's time, I don't have a problem with it.